At that time, the DPDP Act was not notified. The act was passed by the Parliament earlier in, say, 2023, that is 11th August 2023. But now it has been notified just on 13th November. And therefore, I have to modify the entire presentation because the law has now come into effect, and it is going to affect all people who are working on the internet in India. We have around, say, more than 60 crore population that is already, say, working on internet, and we are using smartphones and other devices extensively. So let us see how this data privacy is going to affect us. I'm sharing my screen and presentation. I'm making it full screen. Okay, so let us see now the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 as well as the DPDP rules 2025 that have been notified and have come into effect on 13 November. So I believe most of the audience is from engineering colleges and other faculty members. So how does it affect us when we are protecting the student and faculty data in academic institution? That will be the focus of this presentation. So we shall see the DPDP Act 2023 important provisions, DPDP rules 2025, a comprehensive overview for faculty members and how we can protect student and faculty data in academic institutions, and overall, say, legal framework, how this is going to be implemented in three phases over the next 18 months. So we shall see firstly the introduction to DPDP Act 2023, the timeline and history. Then we shall see key definitions and scope, important terminology uh, and technical terms related to this, rights and obligations that have been given to the data principals. Data principals are the, say, Indian public, that is around 140 crore people. So what are their rights and obligations under this new act? Data Protection Board of India, a special court that has been established on 13th November in India. So they will be dealing with all the litigation related to this. DPDP rules 2025. So the rules have also been notified. Earlier draft rules were published in February 2025. Our focus will be on educational institutions, and we shall see the compliance timeline because we have the act has not fully come into effect, but it will come into effect in three phases, that is immediate. So we shall see what are the provisions that have immediately come into effect on 13th November. Secondly, what are the provisions that will come into effect in 12 months, and then thirdly, what are the provisions that will come into effect within 18 months. So that we shall see systematically. And then practical implications. What is the plan ahead? Because the 12 or 18 months may pass very quickly, and we are maintaining our data. Many say types of data is available on our mobile phones, on our computers, on our within our computers in offices, and it is going to affect all of us. So what are our duties and obligations? And lastly, we shall see the question and answers. So we see that on 11th August 2023, DPDP Act 2023 was enacted. Uh, in 2017, Honorable Supreme Court of India had passed a judgment in Justice Puttaswamy case, and 9-judge constitutional bench had given a decision that India should have a dedicated privacy law. So we had some scattered provisions lying here and there in different sections of different acts, but there was no dedicated privacy act. And since privacy is one of the important dimensions of confidentiality, which is considered within data security, so security has got three dimensions: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Within confidentiality, privacy is one issue. So this deals with that privacy issue. The draft rules were published on January 3, 2025. Consultations were done, and now final rules have been notified on November 13th. On the same day, the special courts called Data Protection Board of India has been established with 4 members and chairman. We shall see its constitution, their powers, functions, and how it will function as a digital office. Then phased implementation, immediately some say provisions have come into effect. That is, the board has been established, definitions, so they have been come into effect. 1 year, so some provisions, that is consent manager. So all organizations have to have consent manager. When we collect the data of people, we have to obtain their consent. It should be informed consent, free and fair consent. We shall see all these provisions. Even the consent manager services can be outsourced for those who do not want to have their own consent manager. 18 months is the full compliance requirements, and particularly it will affect people who are having more than 2 crore accounts, that is significant data fiduciary. So that is another important term that we shall see, who are data principals, data fiduciary, and significant data fiduciary. The purpose of this is to recognize individuals' right to protect personal data. Now we are posting a lot of things on internet. We see cyber crimes are rising. People are misusing, abusing the data. So what is the intended purpose? Why the data is being collected? How it will, what will be the end use? So this was an important gap that was there in the information technology at 2000, and therefore this new law has been brought into effect to complement the IT Act 2000. It balances the data production with, say, lawful processing needs. Processing can be done within India, it can be done outside India also. So we shall see the roles of data fiduciaries as well as the data processors. It applies to digital personal data within India. So if it is our data, if it is related to Indian public, then it has extraterritorial jurisdiction also. Covers data collected digitally or digitized later. So although the name of the act is digital, but when we scan, we are converting the manual data to digital. And then DPDP Act immediately comes into force as soon as you click a picture or you digitize something. So it applies to all digital data lying on our computers, hard disks, or all electronic devices. It includes biometric, it includes CCTV data. So we shall see how it affects us. The key philosophy is rights-based approach. So what are the 5 important rights that are given to us by the government of India that we shall see? Consent specific centric framework, that is, there should be consent and there should be informed consent on behalf of children. For children data, the parents or their, say, guardians can give the consent, that we shall see. Accountability of data fiduciaries. Fiduciary is a word that we use in Hindi. We call it Vaishvasik Natedari. So this Vaishvasik Natedari or data fiduciary is something that is given when someone trusts us. For example, between employer and employee, between teacher and student, between principal and agent, between, say, doctor and patient, between lawyer and client, and like that, different types of fiduciary relationships are there. So we shall see when somebody entrusts us with their data, what are our obligations as and for what purpose we are collecting, and what are our obligations when we are dealing with the data. Now the scope of obligation is, when does the act apply? It applies to processing of digital personal data within India. Secondly, data collected in digital form or non-digital form and digitized subsequently. Therefore, it applies to manual data also if we are going to scan it or converting into digital form. So immediately this act comes into effect with to that data also. Processing outside India, connected to offering goods or services to data principals in India. Data principal is the Indian public. So all the Indian public is called here as data principal. That is around 140 crore population of India is what we shall call as data principals. That is people whose data is being collected. It does not apply to personal or domestic purposes. So if you are doing for personal or domestic purposes, it doesn't apply to this. So that has been excluded. Here we are talking of commercial purposes. Secondly, data made publicly available by data principal or under legal obligation. So if there is some legal obligation, that is the police or the courts require it, and the data is say made available. Secondly, data made publicly available by data principal. That is, if we are posting ourselves, our own data on social media, then it is intended that privacy, we want to make it public. So in that case, the DPDP Act won't apply to data principal. It won't apply to the if it is done under legal obligation, like in case of, say, RTI or some other. So we shall see how there is interface of this with social media as well as the RTI Act. These are two important topics that we have to see. Now, understanding the terminology, data principal is the individual to whom personal data relates. For example, if we are collecting student data at the time of admission, students will be the data principal. For children, it includes parents, lawful guardian. Definition of child is same as in other acts nowadays, 18 below 18 years. So if the children are below 18, we have to collect consent, obtain consent from parents. If it is more than 18, they are able to give their own consent. For persons with disability, includes lawful guardian. So PWD, persons with disability, there is separate act in India of 2016. So in that case, their lawful guardians will be able to give consent. Now personal data, the definition is given: any data about an individual who is identifiable by or in relation to such data. So if a person is uniquely identifiable or in relation to such data, that data belongs to that person or relates to that person, so that is called as personal. So there are some differences between personal, private, confidential, secret, etc., public. So the personal data is given a very broad and somewhat vague definition. So let us see why it is so broad, because protection is needed to all data. Now digital personal data, DPD, because the name of the act is DPDP. So personal data in digital form, it relates to this type of data. Next we see key players in data processing, two important parties we shall see, two or three: data fiduciary, data processor, and significant data fiduciaries. So data fiduciary, we have seen earlier, fiduciary is person who is holding that in fiduciary relationship, that is Vaishvasik Natedari. So person who determines purpose and means of processing personal data. So we are collecting it for specific purpose. There are also different means, for example, technology or mobile phones, computers, by which we are doing the processing or transmission using electronic devices. Secondly, alone or with others. That means when we are storing, or say big companies are storing the data, and it is transmitted sometimes outside India also. So we shall see it applies to in international domain, and we shall see that other countries also have these privacy laws. That is, Europe has GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation 2018. USA has HIPAA. So these different types of data has already there. Particularly in educational institutions are data fiduciaries. So it applies to all the educational institutions, although we are not collecting, say, data of many people, but whatever few thousand students may be there, or few hundred or thousand students. So electronic or digital data is collected, and therefore they are also considered data fiduciaries. As teacher, it is our obligation to maintain the privacy of our students. Now data processor is processes personal data on behalf of data fiduciary. So processing is all the, say, activities from creation up to destruction, transmission. All this is considered as data processor. That definition is also given in section 2 of the DPDP Act under valid contract. That means there is a contract between data fiduciary and data processor. For example, we are opening an account on Gmail. Now Google might have been taking services of some data processors. So there would be a contract, that is people who are acting on behalf of the data fiduciary. They are called data processors. Significant data fiduciary, exact definition is not given in the act. Government can declare any, say, based on different criteria, any data fiduciary as significant. But under the rules, some things are clear, that now it will be 2 crore. That is, if somebody has more than 2 crore accounts, like Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, all these will be significant data fiduciaries, because they have more than 2 crore accounts or more than 2 crore subscribers. So they will fall within the definition of significant data fiduciary. They will have to appoint data protection officers, that is DPO. So these are notified by central government based on these are the factors, that is volume of data. Second is the sensitivity of data. So we shall see what are sensitive personal data, and risk factors if such data gets leaked or attacked uh, due to some cyber crime. Now the important terms: child is defined as individual who has not completed 18 years of age. This is say as per the, say, other definitions within other acts like IPC, BNS, POCSO, etc. So child is this uniform definition nowadays. Earlier that was in older laws there was quite difference whether it is less than 15, 16. So it is clarified that it is 18 years in this act. Consent manager, this is very important person. All organizations have to have consent managers. So registered entity enabling data principals to give, manage, review and withdraw consent. So whenever we collect the data, first we have to, uh, uh, when we are filling some forms, we are giving out data. So we are giving a consent. The consent is to be managed by consent managers. They will also review and there can be consent withdrawal also. These are some important rights of the public whose data is being collected. Single point of contact through independent, say interoperable platform. So these consent managers have to be appointed. Of course, time is there, 12 months. Personal data breach. Now, whenever the cyber attack happens or some significant data breach, for example, thousands or lakhs of passwords have been deleted, or say exposed or published on internet. So immediately these things have to be reported. For example, bank account, and these are not imaginary things. These things have actually happened in the past, over past say more than 25 years or so. So in case of data breach, immediately they have to inform the data protection board as well as they have to inform the public whose data is there. Please change your password immediately or block your cards. Otherwise, there could be some loss to your accounts. So unauthorized processing. So data breach is defined as any unauthorized processing, accidental disclosure, acquisition, sharing, use, alteration, destruction, or loss of access. That is, there could be attack on confidentiality, availability, or say integrity of the data. So in such cases, it has to be reported immediately. So compromises confidentiality. This is what we call as the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability. CIA triad in uh, cyber security. Now, what are the grounds for processing personal data? So two legal bases are there. First is the consent we have to obtain under section 4. So consent of data principal. So whenever we collect the data principal, we have to obtain their consent. So this is the primary basis for lawful processing. For example, we are admitting the students in our college, school, university. We are collecting data from them. It must be free, specific, informed, unconditional, and unambiguous. You can compare that with the say definition of consent under Indian Contract Act 1872. So it should not suffer from any say uh, undisclosed say or hidden things. So it must be valid consent. Otherwise, the consent becomes invalid. Clear affirmative action required. That means there should be some check box or tick box on which the person will click that I consent to this legitimate uses of this data. You might have seen that most of the website, because internet is an international domain, so they are already having privacy notice. But generally we don't even care to read the privacy notice and we click and okay, and like that we accept. But public has the right to see what is the privacy notice, how the data is being used. Now certain legitimate uses are there. Section 7. So voluntary provision without objection, state functions and benefits, legal obligations. So the consent is not required for in some cases. So if there is voluntary provision without objection, then the consent is not necessary. Secondly, state functions and benefits, that is the beneficiary of some government schemes. They are giving data to the government. Legal obligations, medical emergencies, in these cases consent is not needed. Disaster management. So these are the exemptions in which the consent is not needed. And for employment purposes, because employees or job applicants give their data to potential employers. So in these cases, the consent is not required to use their data. So, but it is for specific purpose. So for employment purpose, it can be used. So these have been exempted under section 7. Now the consent requirements are that it should be valid. So it must be free consent given voluntarily without any coercion. If it suffers from coercion, in Hindi we call it jabardasti. So it should not be. It should be without coercion. If there is any coercion, the consent becomes invalid. It should be specific. That is for identified purpose. For what purpose we are obtaining that, collecting that data from them. Informed. That is with full knowledge of processing. That is the data fiduciary should inform that we are getting it processed from so and so companies. Unconditional. That is not bundled with unrelated conditions. So it should be unconditional. It should be unambiguous. That is clear affirmative action. That means there should not be a checkbox that is already been ticked and then you have to uncheck. Earlier it should be blank, and when you are ticking, that means you are specifically doing something with your mouse that you agree to that particular condition. So it should be unambiguous and clear affirmative action should be there. Limited. It is only to data necessary for specified purpose. Withdrawal rights, that means the consent can be withdrawn. So it can be withdrawn anytime. Ease of withdrawal, that is ease of giving consent, and consequences borne by data principal. So if there is someone withdraws the consent, for example, students have passed out, become an alumni, even alumni data can be used, but after some time the data has to be deleted. So data retention is also one of the important principles that we shall see. So in such cases, the consequences if the consent is withdrawn, they will be of the data principal, because the person or the data fiduciary will delete free to delete the data if there is no consent. Now the notice to data principal so has to be informed. So firstly, transparency requirements. Notice must inform about personal data and purpose of processing. So what is the personal data that they have collected? What is the purpose why they are collecting it? How to exercise rights, that is access, correction, eraser, grievance. Let us take example of Facebook. We are posting something on Facebook. We know that when we have to make the account inactive, particularly when we delete. So before deleting the account, you can download all the posts that you have made on Facebook. So this is the right to information. We have the data principals have the right that there is we can access what data is there. We can correct the data if there is something wrong. There is right to eraser, so we can delete our own data, what posts we have made, we can delete the post. And there is grievance. So if something is offensive, we know that we make some complaint, and within 24 or 48 hours they respond, and maybe the offensive post is taken out, or if there is nothing, no violation, they may retain the post. So like that, this internal grievance handling machinery should be there in case of significant data fiduciaries. And how to complain to data protection board, which are the special courts, they have the powers of civil court. So data protection board established under this act. Now the notice characteristics, rule 3 of DPDP rules 2025. So it must be in clear and plain language, independent and understandable, itemized description of data, that is what type of data. For example, I am collecting say your name, email, address, organization, designation, pin code, whatever data I am collecting. So that will be itemized description should be there. Specific purpose description, that is why it is being collected. Contact details and complaint mechanism. So if there is some complaint mechanism should be established, email or say this electronically complaint lodging should be possible and available in English or any 8 scheduled language. That is all the 22 Indian languages. So it should be available in language also, so that they can read and understand in their local language. Now, what are the obligations of data fiduciary? Core responsibilities are firstly the accountability for data. So responsible for compliance regardless of agreement or data principles failure. So this is accountability, that is they are accountable for data. Second is data quality, that is ensure completeness, accuracy and consistency of data or database. Security, so implement appropriate technical and organizational measures. What are the government recognized technical security measures? They are given in schedule 2 of the IT Act 2000. Breach notification, that is in case of data breach, inform the board, that is Data Protection Board of India, and affected data principals, that is the public, that so and so breach has happened, so that immediately they can change their password. In the meanwhile, they can block the accounts. Data retention, that is what is the life of the data, how long the data will be retained on by them. So erase the data when purpose served or consent withdrawn. So once the purpose is done, for example, say NLD is connecting data for providing certificates to participants. So they are collecting the data, and after 1 week, after the say, certificates have been given, they are say, erased from the server. So data is erased when the purpose is served or the consent is withdrawn. So there should be some retention. So how long the data will be retained, that is required for the protection of privacy. Now additional requirements are data processor management, that is engaged only under valid contract. So when the data say fiduciary employs certain data processor, that will be under a valid contract as per the provisions of Indian Contract Act 1872. Contact information. So publish the data protection officer or responsible person's details. So contact information, just like under RTI Act, there are names of say names and contact information of PIO, public information officer. Similarly, now there will be contact information of the DPO, which is essential in case of significant data fiduciaries, HDF. Grievance addressal. So there should be established effective mechanism, the person to whom they can complain. For example, in any case of any website, you know that there is a webmaster. So you can write a mail to webmaster if you have any complaint regarding that website. So webmaster will take care of those mails. Then deemed no longer served. So erase the data after prescribed period or inactivity. We know that when in photo studio also, when we go there, they say uh, take our photographs and process it. Once the photos are given, payment is received, and after that, sometime maybe after 1 day or 1 week, they delete the data so that there is no misuse of data. So the data eraser should be there. Erase the data after prescribed period of inactivity. So if it remains inactive, the accounts may also be say deleted. For example, WhatsApp takes it only for say if you are not logged in to 45 days, again you have to do the validation. After 120 days, maybe the account gets deleted. So like that, after some time it becomes inactive. Now, reasonable security safeguards should be there. So, Rule 6 of DPDP rules 2025 is regarding security measures required. That is minimum security safeguards. So, encryption, obfuscation, masking, or virtual tokens. These are some technical terms uh, that are used for protecting the data. For example, you know that account number when we receive the SMS. So, they don't give your complete mobile number. They even don't give you your full account number. They don't even give you full credit card number. They just give some dates of that. So there is some masking. In case of images, there can be obfuscation. In encryption, plain text is converted into ciphertext, and there could be some virtual tokens like say OTP or say password that can be used. Access controls to computer resources. So there could be read, write, execute access to computer resources. There is logging, monitoring, and review mechanisms. That is, these things are there. For example, in mobile case, call detail records are there. When did you connect the call? When did you disconnect? What are call duration? What is the tariff or billing? So these all things are logged in the call detail logs. Backup and business continuity measures, so that in case of disaster, the data can be restored from the backup. uh, Retention of logs for minimum 1 year. This is very important provision. This has been earlier, this was not specified. Now that the rule under rule 6 this has been there, so all the logs have to be retained on the computers for minimum 1 year. Log is the activity. What is the IP address of the person who is contacting you? What files they have accessed? What is the say data they have downloaded? What data they have printed? So all these logs have to be maintained for minimum 1 year, because law enforcing authorities or courts may need it. Contextual provisions with data processors. So they will have to make the data fiduciaries will have to make contact with the data processors. Technical and organizational measures should also be there and prevent the personal data breach. That is the goal. So reasonable security safeguards need to be taken. Now, in case of data breach, notification has to be given. As per Rule 7, notification requirements are to data principals without delay. For example, if we have say we have our accounts in banks, and if the bank server is compromised, immediately they should inform all the data principals without delay. Description of breach, that is the nature, extent, timing, that is to which country, or the account numbers beginning with what serial number, some specific details should be given, that is nature, extent, timing. Then consequences relevant to them, that is what will happen, what is may likely happen. Mitigation measures implemented, that is immediately they might have blocked, again people will have to validate, and they will ask you to change your password immediately. Safety measures they can take. And contact information for queries, that is helpline. So these things have to be informed to the data principals immediately. To board, that is the data protection board. So initial intimation should be without delay, and they have to submit detailed report within 72 hours, including updated information, causes and events, remedial measures, findings about the data the breach perpetrator if they are available, and report on data principal notifications. So these reports should be given to the board within 72 hours. Now processing children's data. So section 9 gives special protection to children. So obtain verifiable consent of parent or lawful guardian. Of course, for opening email account, no consent is needed, because already these measures are in place. And you know that in Gmail there is privacy policy and other things are already there. So there won't be any problem for day-to-day operations, because the law is already there in the world, although it was not there in India. Now in India also it has come into force on 13th November. So we can learn from other countries who have already implemented these laws. So obtain verifiable consent of parent or lawful guardian. Cannot cause detrimental effect on child's well-being. For example, normally say we have say residential college or residential school, so we don't give data about the children because the children could be kidnapped, so we don't make their data public to third parties or say people who are not related to that. Only the parents have the right to meet them. So these process provisions are already there. Now they have to be implemented in case of data also, personal digital data. So prohibited tracking or behavioral monitoring, because that is unwanted intrusion of privacy, unwarranted intrusion. Then prohibited, that is targeted advertising directed at children, like online gaming, etc. So there is separate law for that. So sometimes we worry why these how these people or marketing people or salesmen say give us some calls or unsolicited email or spam or unsolicited phone calls, messages. So we are all troubled with this because there was no law related to this in India. Now this, because spam is offense in some countries, in other countries it is not. So now we have this privacy law. Then verifiable consent, that is rule 10. So parent must be identifiable in case of identified adult, that is 18 plus years. Due diligence through reliable identity or age details. Can use digital locker service provider. That means services can be outsourced, and virtual tokens are mapped to identity. So there could be some virtual tokens that are given, and these are mapped to the identity of that particular person. So there is a login and password based authentication, or maybe uh, say two-factor or three-factor authentication that can be used. Now, exemptions for children's data in education. See, we need not worry that suddenly the law has come and what to do within 18 months. So, Rule 12 and 4th schedule, they give certain exemptions for educational institutions. So, exemptions from parental consent requirements. This is applicable to educational institutions for, see, we come within the purview of the DPDP Act, but specific purposes have been exempted. For tracking and behavioral monitoring for educational activities, that means if you are doing anything for their say educational activities or their say curricular, extracurricular, co-curricular activities, sport, cultural, everything. So for that purpose, we can collect the data. Tracking and behavioral monitoring for safety of enrolled children for security purpose. That means we maintain the registers in our hostels, we maintain the registers in our security guards for tracking if they are going outside campus. This can be done. Transport tracking for safety during travel to or from institution, so that in case of say any say mishap happens, then we can track the children or the parents can track the children. So for that, data is exempted, that needs to be maintained and shared with parents if necessary. Conditions: processing is restricted to specified legitimate purposes, must be in the interest of child safety and educational activities, and still subject to other DPDP Act obligations. So other obligations remain. Now, what are the rights of public? Public have been given very important fundamental rights, as well as we can say these are constitutional rights, because they fall under Article 21, that is right to live with dignity, and dignity includes privacy. So Supreme Court in Justice Puttaswamy bench, the 9-judge bench, constitutional bench, has held that this is a fundamental right. So what are these rights? Data principals can request summary of personal data being processed, that is what data you are collecting from me. Secondly, description of processing activities, who are your data processors and how you are sharing with them. Identities of other data fiduciaries and processors with whom data shared. For the timing, government has already allowed these things, but central government may impose restrictions if necessary, so that the internet does not get disrupted because of suddenly this law coming into effect. Description of data shared, that is what data is being shared, and other prescribed information. Prescribed means prescribed by rules. Exceptions are sharing with law enforcement, that is police, courts, etc., for say prevention or detection of offences, that is law enforcement activities. Then we have section 12 and 13, that is correction, erase and grievance. So all the data principals have right to correct their data. What is published about you on the internet. So you have the right to correct your data. So right to correction, right to completion, and right to updating. So correct inaccurate or misleading data, complete incomplete data, and update the outdated data. And if this is not done, there is also penalty in the act for 10,000 rupees. That means any Indian person can be penalized by 10,000 rupees if they give some inaccurate data uh, on internet. So there will be clearly identifiable, verifiable data. Right to eraser. That means all persons can delete their own data. So request deletion of personal data from their servers unless retention necessary for specified purpose or legal compliance. Next is the right to grievance redressal. So if we are agreed with something that is posted, for example, say some video is posted on YouTube or some say posted on say Facebook, so we report, block. These mechanisms are already available, so we are familiar with this. So readily available grievance mechanism. Normally they respond within say few days. Response within prescribed period. So Rule 14 says that they should respond within 90 days and must exhaust before approaching board. That means first we must utilize the online grievance handling mechanism of YouTube, Facebook, Gmail, etc. Then only we should approach the board, data protection board if necessary. Another important right is right to nominate. What happens to our social media accounts when we die? When a person dies, the property of the person is inherited by their family members. Similarly, in case of when a person dies, what happens to the his mobile phone, his data, his social media accounts? Earlier there was law only for bank accounts or land records, etc. But now there is a right to nominate. So all the public, all Indian say people around 140 crore people can nominate what happens to their social media accounts when they die. So nomination rights. So can nominate another individual, whosoever you may trust, will be able to handle your say Instagram account or maybe Facebook or Gmail or whatever WhatsApp account. Nominees exercises rights in event of death of data principal and incapacity, that is unsoundness of mind or infirmity of body, and must be done in prescribed manner. So for that the forms will be soon prescribed by the Data Protection Board of India. Now the duties of data principals. So reciprocal responsibilities are there, section 15. Data principal must comply with applicable laws while exercising rights, not impersonate another person when providing personal data. So their true information must be given by public, otherwise there is 10,000 penalty. Not suppress material information for government issued documents or identifiers, not register false or frivolous grievances, and furnish only verifiably authentic information for correction or erasure. Earlier it was not an offense. Now for this breach there is penalty up to 10,000. It's a civil penalty, not a criminal fine, and there is no imprisonment. So just penalty, and this is maximum. It could be less than that also. So maximum it could be 10,000 for public. Now the DPB has come into existence on November 13. It has powers of civil court. So it is a body corporate with perpetual succession. Headquarters are National Capital Region of India. At present, the composition is chairperson and 4 members. Separate notification has been issued for this. Term is 2 years. Their members are eligible for reappointment. Functions as independent body. Digital office by design. So they will have their website. It is already established. Appointment process. So search cum selection committee, which is headed by cabinet secretary, who is the topmost IS officer of India. Central government approval is there. Qualification, that is ability, integrity, standing, expertise. So these has been specified under the DPDP rules. So the ability of these members of DP board and integrity, standing, expertise. Now, what are the powers of this special court? So they can inquire into and impose penalties for personal data breaches. It could be up to 250 crore. There's very hefty amount. 250 crore maximum could be there. Personal data breaches, breach of data fiduciary obligations, breach by consent managers, breach of registration conditions, intermediary violations on government reference. Intermediary are those people who are not posting their own data but who are hosting the data. For example, cyber cafe are intermediary, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, these are all intermediary. Mobile companies are intermediary. Internet service provider, ISP, these are intermediary. All these are as per the definition given under IT Act 2000. Powers are to issue directions, that is binding on persons, conduct inquiries following natural justice, that is notice will be given. Same powers as civil court. Above this, the appeal can be made to the appellate tribunal, which is same as TDSAT, Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, established under TRI Act 1997. Someone examine an evidence, issue interim orders, and close the proceedings or impose penalties. So these are the powers of the board. Now the board procedures have been given, section 28, how board functions. So procedural features are there. They will have digital office with online proceedings. So proceedings will be online. Anyone can appear even through mobile phone, etc. No need to go personally to that court, determines sufficiency of grounds, records reasons in writing, follows principles of natural justice, that means notice will be given before any penalty is imposed, cannot prevent access or disrupt the operations, can requisition the police or government assistance, and can issue warnings or impose costs for frivolous complaints. The timeline is inquiry completion maximum 6 months and extendable by 3 months. So the maximum it can't be more than 9 months, so that there is no tarikh pe tarikh like that. Penalties overview. So section 33 and schedule. So financial consequences are given. Significant procedures can result in penalties. They have been specified under the schedule. So up to rupees 250 crore for failure to implement reasonable security safeguards. Up to rupees 200 crore failure to notify breach of children's data protections. Up to rupees 150 crore breach by significant data fiduciary obligations. Up to rupees 50 crore breach of other act provisions, and up to rupees 10,000 breach of data principal duties. Of course, there is no need to be suddenly afraid that these are very hefty amounts, because there are some factors that need to be considered, like wrongful gain, wrongful loss, who has got wrongful gain, how much you have, the person who has breached has profited, what is the loss to the other party. So these are the penalty determination factors. Section 33(2) says what board considers factors for determining penalty amount. First is the nature, gravity and duration of breach, type and nature of personal data affected, repetitive nature of breach, whether it is first offense or repeat offense, gain realized or say loss avoided by the person. So we can refer to IPC 2324, wrongful gain, wrongful loss, or maybe section 2 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 now. Timeliness and effectiveness of mitigation action, that is to reduce the loss, proportionality and effectiveness of the penalty, and likely impact on the person. So all penalties are credited to the Consolidated Fund of India. There is no provision for compensation, and even the 43 capital A of IT Act will be repealed now. So people can't, not a single person will go to any Indian public. It will be deposited to the government treasury straight away. So that is it is a penalty. There is no provision for compensation, so that there is no litigation. Otherwise, people might start warring with each other just for financial benefit. So there is no provision for compensation. Appeal mechanism. So there is the appellate tribunal. This is same at the TDSAT. Earlier it was called, under IT Act it was called Cyber Appellate Tribunal. So this tribunal is there for many acts. So appeal rights are to Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal. This is established under Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997. Within 60 days of board order can be extended. So appeals against the board can be made to the TDSAT. Against TDSAT, they can be made to the High Court, of course, and then Supreme Court. So must pay prescribed fee, that is can be reduced or waived, and functions as digital office. Appeal processes, parties given opportunity to be heard, that is they are given the copy of the complaint or the petition that is filed by the other party. Tribunal can confirm, modify or set aside the order. So this appellate tribunal can have the powers over and above this board, Data Protection Board of India, should dispose within 6 months, and further appeal to appropriate High Court, having the jurisdiction in that. Now, alternative dispute resolution mechanism is given in 3132. So mediation and voluntary undertaking. Mediation is in section 31, Madhyastham, we call it in Hindi. So board may direct parties to attempt mediation by mutually agreed mediator or as provided under applicable law. We already have the law for arbitration and conciliation at 1996 in India for that. Voluntary undertaking, that is section 32, can be accepted at any stage, may induce actions, retaining or publicity. Board can vary terms with consent, and bars proceedings except in case of breach, and breach is deemed violation of Act. So these are some important voluntary undertaking has to be given in case of alternative dispute resolution. Now, what are the exemptions? This is very important. Section 17, when Act does not apply. So limited exemptions are available under chapters 2 and 3 as well as section 16. So enforcing legal rights or claims. Secondly, courts, tribunals, regulatory bodies performing functions, they have been exempted from this. Prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution of offences, which is done by policemen. So police is exempted. Then personal data of persons outside India, contractual. So if it is under some contract and if it is outside India, then there, of course India can't exercise that because it is very difficult to enforce it in international scene. Mergers, acquisitions and reconstructions. and ascertaining financial information of loan defaulters. So these are the things that are for which the data can be used. Complete exemptions are given to notified state instrumentalities, like for the purpose of state security, so sovereignty and security of India, for research purpose, archiving, statistical purposes with standards. So there is complete exemption for this academic purposes, etc. Now exemptions for educational institutions are given in 17.3. So startup and small entity relief has been given. Central government may notify exemptions. These have not yet been notified, but let us wait for some, because Act has come into force on 13 November this year. So maybe within few days we might see such notifications. Section 5, that is notice requirements. Section 8, 3 and 7, so data quality and erasure. Significant data fiduciary obligations, and Section 11, access rights. Basis will be volume and nature of personal data process, and educational institutions may qualify depending on size and data processing volume. That is, what is the number of students in your school, college, university, or what is your processing volume, maybe in say megabyte, gigabyte, terabytes. So that may be specified. Data retention and erasure. So section 8.7 and rule 8, when to delete data. So erasure required when data principal withdraws consent or reasonable to assume specified purpose is no longer being served, whichever is earlier. Exception is retention necessary for legal compliance. Deemed no longer served, that is rule 8 and third schedule. These rules also have schedules. So for specified classes of data fiduciaries, if data principal doesn't approach for specified purpose, then the data can be erased and doesn't exercise rights. And for prescribed time periods, that is, for example, 3 years for e-commerce, that is, for e-commerce website may delete the data after 3 years, that is the retention period. Social media, online gaming platforms with specified user thresholds. So these rules are likely to come within next few days. Now, data retention requirements. So minimum retention period must retain for minimum 1 year personal data processed, associated traffic data, and processing logs. Traffic is transmission, that is what email we have received, what email we have sent. Traffic is when we are connect, disconnect time, call, connect, call, disconnect. All this is called as traffic data. That is not the actual data, but the metadata, data about data. Purpose is enable detection, investigation, and remediation of unauthorized access. After 1 year, erase unless further retention required by law. So if some case is pending, then it has to be retained. Otherwise, that can be erased. 48-hour notice. That is before erasure. The notice will be given to the data principal that we are going to delete your data within 48 hours. If you have objection, you may please inform. So before erasure, inform the data principal and give opportunity to log in or contact. So this is mandatory. Now, transfer of data outside India. This is very important. We call it the principle of localization. Reserve Bank of India has already implemented the process that whatever financial data, it must be processed within India. They have implemented that since around 2017. But now the DPDP Act has come into force, and now it can be applied to other data, that is non-financial data also. That if it is related to Indian public, you must have India office, your India manager, and it must be processed within India. So cross-border transfers, they can be prevented. So data can be transferred outside India, that is the general rule. But the restrictions are that central government may restrict transfer to specific countries, must meet requirements specified by government. Any law providing higher protection prevails. So government, this is an enabling provision, and central government may impose restrictions if deemed necessary. For significant data fiduciaries, that is if they have more than 2 crore accounts, like WhatsApp, Instagram, Gmail, Telegram. So those who have are about 2 crore say data principals. So under Rule 13, government may specify data that cannot leave India based on committee recommendations. So there is advisory committee, and traffic data related to such data also restricted. So traffic data is the metadata, that is the volume or date creation, date modified, date access, etc. All this is traffic data. Now, significant data fiduciary, SDF, this is a very important term. It is not they have some special obligations. Now it is clear. Earlier it was not clear because the rules were not notified. Now the rules have been notified on 13 November, so we know what exactly it is. Enhanced obligations, notification criteria is volume and sensitivity of data, risk to data principal rights, impact on sovereignty and integrity, risk to electoral democracy, security of state and public order. They have certain additional obligations. So HDF have to appoint DPO, Data Protection Officer, India based, just like under RTI every public authority has to appoint PIO, Public Information Officer. So now there will be DPOs. Appoint independent data auditor, conduct periodic data protection impact assessment (DPIA), and undertake periodic audit. So these are necessary for significant data fiduciary. Consent manager framework is given in section 6, subsection 7 to 9 and rule 4, facilitating consent. So what is the consent manager? It is consent manager is registered with board. He enables data principals to give, manage, review or withdraw consent. That is, the public can give their consent, they can manage, they can review and they can withdraw consent. See, for that, consent manager is the single point of contact, is another officer under this act. Accessible, transparent and interoperable platform, on that he should be available. Regulation requirements, that is first schedule. So company incorporated in India, net worth not less than rupees 2 crore, technical, operational, financial capacity, sound financial condition and management, director's management with integrity, and no conflict of interest with data fiduciaries. So these are the requirements in which case they have to appoint the consent managers. Then consent manager obligations are given in first schedule, part 8, part B. Key responsibilities are: host, enable consent through interoperable platform, ensure data content is not readable by consent manager, maintain the records, that is consent notices, data sharing, provide data principal access to records, maintain records for at least 7 years, avoid the conflict of interest, publish transparency information, have effective audit mechanism, and act in fiduciary capacity to data principal. He cannot subcontract or assign obligations to any other person. So these are the obligations under the Act for consent manager. Now coming to our focus, that is educational institutions and data fiduciaries. So you process personal data of students, that is including children, faculty and staff, parents and guardians, visitors, research participants. Common processing activities that we do in say engineering colleges or in institutions. This is admissions and enrollment, academic records and assessments, attendance tracking, library services, online learning platforms, research activities, employment records, alumni relations. These are a few examples where DPDP Act comes into force. If it is children's data less than 18, particularly in schools, in educational context, so key compliance requirements are: obtain parental consent for children, that is less than 18, exemptions for educational institutions, that is rule 12. So tracking and behavioral monitoring for educational activities is permitted. Okay, it's 12 p.m. Huh. So let us finish the remaining part. Exemptions for educational institutions, Rule 12, tracking and behavioral monitoring for educational activities, tracking and behavioral monitoring for safety, transport location tracking for safety. So these are legitimate and they have been permitted. Still required, that cannot cause detrimental effect on well-being of children, no targeted advertising on to children, no tracking or behavioral monitoring beyond exempted purposes, security safeguards, breach notification and other DPDP obligations remain. Coming to practical scenarios for faculty. So let us imagine, first is the student registration process, for example. So we collect the student data during admission. What is the purpose? So compliance steps we take: provide the clear notice, that is purpose, why you are collecting data, what data we are collecting. For example, itemized list of entries in the form, admission form, rights. They should be informed of their rights also. For students under 18, obtain verifiable parental consent. Collect only necessary data. This is called the data limitation principle. That is only necessary data. Just don't ask any unnecessary details. Then ensure data accuracy. It is also their obligation to give accurate data about themselves. Implement security measures. That is all cryptography and security, cyber security techniques. Establish grievance mechanism, that is they should be able to complain to the grievance handling machinery online, and return records for legal requirements. So these are the obligations in case of student data. Let us take another scenario. We are maintaining LMS or online learning platform or ERP systems. So using learning management system, LMS, compliance steps are: notice about data collection, that is their login, activity, assessments. For minors, parental consent is there. Behavioral monitoring only for educational purposes, that is exemption applies. Ensure LMS provider, that is data processor, has adequate safeguards. So it could be outsourced if we are not maintaining our website ourselves. Then valid contract with the LMS provider. No targeted advertising to students. enable students to access their data, and respond to correction or erasure requests. So these are the obligations in case of say LMS. Let us take third scenario, for example, research projects. So collecting data for academic research, compliance steps are informed consent from participants, clear notice about research purpose, why we are collecting their data. Then anonymization where possible. Anonymization means say the names of the persons are erased, or pseudonymization can be done. For example, one of our faculty members had done this research for breast cancer. So he got some photographs from a hospital, and with that hospital he had to sign the agreement that we are getting these breast images, but the names of those persons are not given because they are not important. Age may be significant, whether it is benign tumor, malignant tumor in case of breast cancer. So for that the data is collected. So names are not needed. So anonymization or pseudonymization can be done, and say de-anonymization is considered an offense. So that should not be done. So that again, that should not be combined with the names once anonymization is done. If published, ensure compliance with Act, that is may qualify for research exemption under section 17 if meeting second schedule standards. So in case of publishing, that is making it public, we have to ensure compliance with that. Then security safeguards and retention only till research purpose is served, and special care with children's or sensitive data, just like I have given the example now. Another scenario could be, for example, email communication. So collecting email addresses for communication, that normally we get the data from all. Situation for children, rule 12 for schedule. So creating user account for email communication. So user account has to be created. Secondly, exemption applies, that is parental consent is not required in such cases. So opening email is not a problem. Restricted to email communication purpose only. Compliance is clear notice about purpose, security measures, opt-out mechanism should be there, and erase when purpose is served. So these are the common scenarios. Another could be say campus safety systems. We have CCTV, biometric attendance, location tracking. So for children, safety exemption applies. That is tracking for safety of children, rule 12 for schedule, behavioral monitoring in safety interest. Compliance is notice about surveillance or tracking, clear safety purpose, restricted access to footage or data. That is, they can view their own data, not other people data. That could be obfuscated. Retention policies, how long it will be retained, CCTV or biometric recordings, security safeguards for location tracking of children only for safety, restricted to travel time. So just like we have CCTV in bus stand, railway station, airport, so that is for crime monitoring, surveillance purpose. So after that, they are automatically deleted or overwritten. So data breach response plan can be prepared. What to do when the breach occurs? So immediate actions are identified and maintain breach, content breach, assess the scope and impact of that breach, document details, that is nature, extent, timing, and location. Within 72 hours, report to notify the data protection board, notify affected data principals, provide the mitigation steps, inform about consequences, and give contact for queries. Follow-up action could be implement the remedial measures, prevent recurrence of such a breach, and report to the board on notifications that are sent to the data principals. Grievance redressal mechanism we have to implement on our websites. So institutional requirements are, we must establish readily available grievance mechanism, response within 90 days, appropriate technical and organizational measures, prominent publication on website or app. There should be grievance officer with contact information, publish the business contact information, must be able to answer data principal queries, respond to rights exercise requests, and remember that data principals must exhaust this before approaching board. So internal grievance handling mechanism must be there on all websites. Of course, 12 or 18 months have been given for this. Then documentation and record keeping. So what record should you maintain? Essential documentation is notices given to data principals. That means to all students, when we are giving the notices at the time of admission, they have to be maintained. Consents, records of consents obtained, especially parental. Processing activities, that is what data, why, how long, retention, etc. Security measures, implementation safeguards. Contracts, that is with data processors, for example, cloud providers, LMS, learning management system vendors. Breach incidents, that is details and responses, grievances, complaints and resolutions, and data retention, that is logs should be maintained for 1 year minimum. Third party vendor management can be done. So managing data processors, examples are cloud storage, LMS, email services, payment gateways, examination platforms. We may not do all these activities ourselves and we may outsource these to others. So in that requirements are valid written contract required. Contract must include safety, security safeguard provisions, how they are handling our data. Data fiduciary remains responsible for compliance because it is our data. We are the owners of data. Assess the vendor's data protection practices. Ensure vendor complies with the Act requirements. Right to audit vendor compliance and data deletion obligations when contract ends. So now that we have 18 months, what to do over next 1 year or 18 months? So immediate effect, uh, provisions are already in force. Data Protection Board of India has been established, come into effect. Sections 18 to 26. Definitions have come into effect. Power to make rules, section 40, these have come into effect. Bar of jurisdiction, no cases can't go to ordinary civil courts. They will go to Data Protection Board only under this act. So bar of jurisdiction is section 39, protection of action taken in good faith, section 35, and consistency with other laws, section 38. Action items are familiarize with the definitions, understand the board structure, and begin the compliance planning because 12 or 18 months may pass soon. Second phase, what will come into effect 1 year from now, that is say November 2026. So provisions coming into force, section 69, consent manager registration has to be done within 1 year. And 27(1)(d), that is board inquiry into consent manager breach. Action items are understand the consent manager framework, evaluate if your institution might benefit from consent manager services, and monitor development of consent manager ecosystem. Either we may appoint our own or maybe we can outsource these services to others. What happens 18 months after this? That is May 2027, because then the act will fully come into force. So government has given us 18 months. Full compliance is required, all major provisions. So sections 3 to 5, that is applicability grounds notice. Section 6, 1 to 8, 10, consent requirements. Section 7 and 9 will come into effect, legitimate uses, obligations, children, significant data fiduciary. 11 to 7, so rights, duties, exemptions will come into effect. Section 27, that is except 27(1)(d), which has already come into effect, so board powers. 28, 34, procedures, appeals and penalties. And section 36, 37, information directions. So be fully compliant by this date because on 14 May 2027, the act will fully come into effect. So now compliance roadmap for institutions is given, 18-month action plan, what we can do as teachers or as administrators in our institutions. Assessment and planning is conduct the data mapping exercise, what type of data we have, identify all personal data processing activities, classify data principals, that is students, faculty, staff, children, identify data processors or vendors, gap analysis against DPDP requirements. Within 4 to 6 months, policy development. So draft the privacy policy or notice, develop consent mechanisms, create grievance redressal process, establish security safeguard protocols, draft the contracts with